Hi, everyone. On this episode of the AZ BizLink podcast, I have Jake Logan, the CEO of the Arizona Charter School Association, here to share a little bit more about education in the state of Arizona. So if you're looking for the right educational opportunity for your children, or from the corporate side, if you're looking for ways in which you can get further involved, this is the podcast you'll want to tune in for. I wanted to thank you, Jake, for joining me today for this conversation about education in the state of Arizona. So I thought it'd be helpful for you to maybe share a little bit more about your role and what the Arizona Charter School does in the state of Arizona.
Excellent. Well, thank you for having me. I'm delighted to be here. So I am the president and CEO of the Arizona Charter Schools Association, which is the trade association for charter schools. In Arizona, about 20%, just under 20% of kids in K12 education attend a charter school. There's about 560 charter schools within the state. I run the trade association, which helps do advocacy work. We help do education and continuing education for our schools and our faculty, as well as different training sessions. And so the charter schools being such a big part of the Arizona K12 marketplace here, we've always got something going on.
So the one thing about our podcast is we always like to unveil all the great things that our community has to offer, both personally and professionally. So on the personal side, as we're continuing to grow our families here in our community, education is a huge component because we're always trying to find the right school to send our kids to. So within Arizona, just as you had mentioned, there are so many great options here in town. We have school of choice and those kind of items. Maybe can you talk a little bit about the options that we have?
Yeah, we are very fortunate, in my view, to live in the state. And while it's not perfect and there needs to be continued improvement in our K-12 system, one of the things that I think Arizona has done really well is to give choice to parents. And in Arizona and in Maricopa County, it's right around 50% where you can choose to go from a district to another district school, or a district to a charter school, and then obviously parents have private school choices if they choose. I think that's been healthy for Arizona. I think it gives you a chance to customize your child's education. We have some really, really good district schools. There's some really, really good charter schools. And I'll give you an example. If your child is really into the arts and they excel at the arts, well, there's a charter school for that. If your child is really into sports, there's district and charter schools that have a different emphasis there. So there's all kinds of different stuff. We could go on and on about the different customization that's occurred. But in my view, I think that's really, really good. And it's affected everyone from the elite student, because they'll have different choices, to a student maybe that's struggling a little bit, to students who, again, they're going to learn better in a different environment. Maybe technology is good, maybe it's bad. You have choices there. And again, I know there's a lot of work to be done. Education, we need to improve our education system here in Arizona, but I think one of the real net positives is the ability to have school choice.
So school of choice in the state of Arizona, what does that look like and how does that process work?
Yeah, so with charters and district schools, it's tuition free. So they're both public charter schools and public district schools. They have to, if they have space, they have to take you. Now, the challenge sometimes is schools get full, and so they don't have that space. But if you live in Scottsdale School District and you want to send a child to a school in Paradise Valley School District, you can do that. If you live in Peoria School District and you want to send them to a charter school in Mesa, you can do that. So they're tuition free. They have to take all students, but it is limited to space. And so as a parent, you can go on our website. If you Google the Arizona Charter Schools Association.com or other websites too, we have all the schools in this district and charter schools in the state based on the data. It'll tell you what their letter grade was. So as a parent, you can get information on those schools. It'll tell you how to contact those schools. So if you have a question or you want to learn more, do a school tour, again, with both district and charter schools, and you can make that choice what you think is going to be the right fit for your child. I always tell people, whether you're moving to the state or whether you have a child who's getting ready to start school, I'd really shop around. I would look at all your options and then make the best choice for your child, because there are in a lot of cases distinct differences.
Those are some great tips. So looking at maybe the school's grade, what are some other elements that you would encourage parents to look at when they're evaluating education options?
Yeah, there is curriculum. For instance, some schools have a really traditional curriculum. Some schools are really heavy on technology. There is how they the focus of their school. Like we have there's a charter school that really focuses on agriculture and equestrian activities. That's great, but that's not for everybody. And so I think those things. There's things like school uniforms, class sizes, location, sports. Some charter schools do sports, some don't. Some district schools have more robust sports programs, some don't. Again, depending on what your child is interested in. But I would definitely shop around, and there's a lot of tools out there that can help identify. And I always tell parents, I think one of the best things you can do is visit the school and do a tour, whether it's a district school or a charter school, and see for yourself and walk the campus and get a sense. I think sometimes you can get a sense of the vibe of the school, and you can kind of make an adjustment there. And they'll tell you about what curriculum they use and what they emphasize. Is it the sciences? Is it reading? Is it all kinds of different things? And so I think you can really get an appreciation for the school and if it'll be a right fit for your child.
So aside from the Arizona Charter School Association website, are there any other websites that you would encourage people to look at?
Yeah, the Arizona Department of Education has a lot of choices there. You can almost Google schools in my area and you'll get 10 different schools that'll come up. So there are a number of them. I think ours is pretty good because it not only has like the geographic proximity to your home, but also, again, those letter grades and then how to get in contact with the school.
No, that's really interesting. So obviously you have a passion for education, but what else do you like to do in the community outside of your day in and day out job?
Yeah, I'm an Arizona native. I just love living here. I love everything about Arizona, and I'm not naive to our challenges. We have challenges here, but it's a really, in my opinion, a great place to live, and I've never wanted to live anywhere else. So for me, I'm involved with the business community. I'm on the board of the Arizona Chamber of Commerce, and you and I share are on a board together with the Fiesta Bowl, which I'm a sports nut. So it's a fun way for me to give back to the community and participate in an organization that I really like a lot. But I've done a number of boards on and off. But one of the neat things I think about Phoenix philanthropically is there's really no barriers to entry. It's kind of up to you how much time you have and how much you want to do. And I've always thought that was a really neat thing. There's no pecking order or anything like that. You kind of find what you're interested in and how much time you have to dedicate to it, and you can do it.
I think you're a perfect example of one of those local leaders that has done a really nice job as far as balancing your time between what you do at work in your personal life and then also giving back to the community. So kudos to you for doing that.
And you as well. It's a lot of fun.
So when you're looking at ways in which local leaders can get further involved, especially in the space of education, I know a lot of employers here in town care about education system here in the state of Arizona because it's their future workforce. So if you were another employer here in town, what ways could they get involved with education? Yeah,
there's a number of ways. There's obviously in the political process, the legislature and the governor every year talk about funding, and we saw last year the Red for Ed movement and how impactful that was. So there's always ways to get involved in the political process, and there's a lot of different policy choices you can make, but you can get involved with candidates or, Governor Ducey or whomever you think shares your view on education. I always tell folks, if you have kids in school, it's great to be involved in their school. Parents are so important to making the culture of a school and making schools successful in work. I think that's a great way. There are a number of organizations like ourselves, both on the district side and the charter side, where if you're interested, you can get involved. But I totally agree with you. Consistently you always hear one of the things that attracts businesses to Arizona is schools. And I think it is so important. In addition to it's the right thing to do, and it's for our kids and our students, it's so important for the economic and business climate of the state.
And it's really interesting, as I've been involved with other, nonprofit organizations here in town, there's always that direct tie-in to a lot of the education groups.
Yes.
So I work with Valley of the Sun United Way.
That's a great example.
And they have that program where they go in and read to kids in the classrooms.
Yes.
That one's been really fun.
Yes.
Even the Fiesta Bowl,
yes.
their program for their teachers.
Yes.
So, certainly there's different avenues in which we can get involved, but what are some of the current needs that you're aware of that some of the schools are looking for?
Yeah, I am such a true believer in the value of the teacher in the classroom and the teacher's ability and making sure they have the tools and the resources they need. That's why you referenced the Fiesta Bowl. One of the things I love that we do there is support teachers. And other organizations, philanthropic organizations do it too. I'm just a big believer in teachers are the key to the education system in large part. And supporting teachers any way you can, I think, is just a great way. And sometimes it's a pat on the back. A lot of times it's resources for the classroom or anything I think we can do to support teachers is so important.
You bet. As we're looking to ramp up and go back to school, gosh, almost weeks away now. It's hard to believe summer is already, more than halfway over. So as individuals are preparing to send their kids back to school and their companies are looking to get further involved, one idea that a lot of companies do is a backpack drive, or even school supplies.
Yes.
So I encourage individuals to maybe take that into consideration. It's a good way to give back.
It really is.
Or even, providing funding for those kids' shoes or clothes that they may need. And even by reaching out to the local school district or the school within the neighborhood of their business or where they live, I'm sure they have a needs list already identified that, individuals could help out with. Are there any other platforms that you're familiar with that kind of help to identify the needs of schools, such as like school supplies, like Amazon, right? On Amazon, there's a wish list. Do any schools utilize anything like that?
For sure. Yeah, there's all kinds of different tools and things out there. And, a lot of times if you check in with a local school, or if you call our office, we can help identify what those needs are. But you're absolutely right. There are all, especially to your point, with back to school drives and kids getting back to school, there are a number of different philanthropic groups or companies that want to give back. And I think it's really one of the neat parts about education is that the business community and the culture of our state, and I think a lot of places, really emphasizes, let's make sure kids get off on the right foot and have a good school year and they have the resources they need, as well as the teachers and others.
I would love to get your input as far as how K12 Education is partnering with the local university systems in order to prepare the future workforce. Can you talk about some of those partnerships?
Absolutely. ASU, and for just in my zone, charter schools has been a great partner. They have charter schools called the ASU Prep. They also do some online work. They're a very, very good partner. And we have, and I think this is true with the district schools as well. ASU is such an asset to this community and being able to work with our schools and not only provide the resources and that connective tissue to the university, but also to give our students kind of a firsthand that you've got a really good university in your backyard. I'll also say our community colleges are very good. And by and large, we have some really neat partnerships where you can have dual enrollment. So you're a senior in high school, you're a good student, you're also enrolled in community college. And there are a lot of schools where students will graduate with enough college credits to have an AA degree as well as their high school diploma. And what a great launch on life to be able to have those 2 degrees as an 18-year-old getting ready to go to your next phase, whether it's in the workforce or at a 4-year university. So I think sometimes our community colleges don't get as much credit as they should for the great work they do.
Absolutely. And I think another thing that our community has to offer is the great vocational schools.
For sure.
There's a lot of, Westmec and EVIT do a phenomenal job with that. So some employers are looking to attract students directly out of the K12 education system or even through some of those vocational schools. If they are looking for a specific type of candidate and they want to make sure that those students have the right skill set, how can they partner with schools in order to have those conversations?
Yeah, well, you were exactly right. Governor Ducey tells a funny story where he was talking to a friend up in Prescott, and the friend said, "Look, we don't need any more lawyers up here. We need a plumber." And so I think the state, under Governor Ducey's leadership, has really emphasized that vocational aspect for some students who that's the right fit for. And I think you also made the point that we have some very good vocational schools here in Arizona, and I think the legislature and the governor are really prioritizing those. Again, it's not for every student, but for that right fit and that right student, they're really key pieces to the whole to the economic and the educational environment here.
Absolutely. Yeah. As I've talked to a lot of those companies looking to hire those individuals, it's been funny because a lot of people have this misconception that if you go into the trades right out of high school, that you're going to be making minimum wage, which actually isn't the case. A lot of times they're paying pretty high wages and allowing kids the opportunity to work, at least part-time or full-time, earn a decent living. And then they also have the funds to actually go back to school. And some of those employers here in town are providing continuing education reimbursement opportunities as well. So talking about, we talk about K12 education and kind of what that looks like today. How do you envision K12 education evolving over the next couple of years?
Yeah, boy, that's a great question, and there's a lot in there. But
Sure.
the simplest answer is that as Arizona continues to grow, which we're still, as you know, a state where people are moving to Arizona, which is a good thing. We're going to have to continue to adapt and, one, be able to absorb that growth. Number two is I think all the ingredients are there or could be there to go to the next level in terms of our education achievement. We do very well on a lot of things. Now, we have some challenges too, and we need some to address those challenges. But I can see a system where school choice still remains wildly popular. I think it's sort of baked into the culture of Arizona. Parents have came to expect that they have the opportunity to choose which school is the right fit for their student. So I think that will continue. And I think we have a really great opportunity in the next few years here to continue to move the needle on flexibility and being creative and being thoughtful. And, you asked a question about ASU, and I always, whenever I think of this world, I think of Dr. Crow, the president of the university, which is be innovative. And I've never seen him give a speech where he didn't say the word innovative, and I love it. And so I think for our K-12 students, that is really going to be one of our keys. And I think in Arizona, we have the flexibility and the structure to do that.
I absolutely agree. So as an Arizona native, how do you like to spend your free time? I mean, whether in the outdoors or great restaurants, like what are some of your favorite things?
Yeah, good question. So I have two kids, so they take most of my time. Sure. And my family. But when I'm not, I'm a golf nut. So I'll figure out a way to go hit balls for an hour or putt or play golf when I can. So that's probably mine. And I'm a sports nut too. So any chance I get to go to, I'm a diehard ASU guy. So an ASU sporting event I love, or any of those kinds of things is what I would do.
So as you continue to grow your professional network, I mean, being involved in local organizations such as the Fiesta Bowl, which we had mentioned, it's a great avenue in order to meet other local leaders here in town. How else are you networking personally?
Yeah, we kind of hit on it earlier, which is I just think it's such a great community because there's so many different ways to get involved. There are philanthropic organizations, whether it's the Fiesta Bowl or the Charros or the Diablos, or almost every community has something like that. There are all kinds of different business organizations that you can get involved in. Me personally, I'm pretty active in the Arizona Chamber of Commerce, and so I bump into a lot of people there. But there's just all kinds of different ways to get involved, and it is one of I think the really neat things about Phoenix is every community has a pretty robust business community. There's the statewide stuff, and then it's almost city by city, or philanthropic organizations. Like there's a great group of people that support Luke Air Force Base, and I think that they're called the Blue Blazers, and I think that's a really neat thing for them to do and to be active in the community and support what a huge asset that is for our community and our economy. So all kinds of different ways, whether it's, you can do it through the universities or just a million different ways to get involved. And I always tell my kids, as you get older, you got to find something that you're interested in and be involved. One, it's the right thing to do for the community, but number two is it's a great way to meet people and network. Absolutely.
At what point in your career did you realize how important it was to continue to build your network?
Yeah, I pretty early. I had some friends that were on a board of a charity that I joined, and it was fun, and we were kind of young and figuring it out as we went, but I really enjoyed it. And I just kind of dove in right as a young professional and was kind of figuring it and making it up as I go. But it was for me, it was a really, it was important to do, and I wanted to do it. And I looked at other people that were successful and felt like that was the kind of things they were doing. In addition to, if you have time and resources, I just think it's important to give back. And so we're lucky in this community that we have so many leaders that have done that since, Arizona really got on the map.
Absolutely. So if you were to rewind the clock, right, and tell your younger self something that would be super impactful to your future, what would it be?
I guess, all the twists and turns of all this stuff. Have a good sense of humor, work hard, be honest, treat people fairly the way you'd want to be treated. You never know the twists and turns. If you would have told me I was 25, I'd be the CEO of the Arizona Charter Schools Association, I would have no idea what you're talking about. So
it's funny how so many executives say the exact same thing.
Yeah. It life is weird and sometimes, and have a good sense of humor and have fun doing. I guess probably the biggest thing is have fun doing what you're doing. If you have fun and you enjoy it, it makes everything. So the challenging times are so much better and the good times are great.
I agree. If you can find your passion, it doesn't really feel like work anymore,
Right,
right? I mean, I'm sure
exactly.
there's some days where you have long
Yeah,
hours.
right. Everybody has bad days, but for the most part, it really makes a huge difference.
Absolutely. So one thing I really like to focus on is the workforce here in the state of Arizona and how we continue to attract and retain top talent and what employers are looking for in their next employee. Can you maybe talk about just kind of what you've seen, throughout your time as an executive here in the market?
Yeah. I was in the corporate America before I did this job. And those are always key factors to us. And again, to me, obviously the tax climate is really important. We're fortunate to have good weather here and we have a pretty good airport and all those kinds of infrastructure things, although I know there are probably some areas of improvement needed there too. But I do think education really is a key factor, which is if I'm going to build a plant here, am I going to have an educated workforce that's going to be able to do that? And I'm really proud of the role charter schools play, and districts do too, but charter schools play in being able to have high quality students that can go on and fill those jobs and roles. And we've got to keep growing and improving in that area if we want to continue to grow our economy and diversify our economy, whether it's a manufacturing base or the Silicon Valley of the Southwest kind of a thing. It's just so important to make sure our education system is up to par.
What are some things that people wouldn't necessarily know about charter schools in the state of Arizona?
It's funny when I tell people what I do, I get a wide range of responses. I think some people think, oh, what's the tuition for those? And I'm like, no, there is no tuition. They're tuition free. So I think that would be one thing. I think the amount of diversity would be the other thing that we have in Arizona. For example, we have a school that focuses on autistic students or deaf students. We have schools that are for higher learners that the basis school network, for example, is always featured in U.S. News and World Report as nationally some of the best schools in the country. So you just have all different and everything in between. Again, if you're into athletics, there's choices there. The arts, if you're into agriculture, if you're into computer science, if you're into music, there's just a wide variety of those things. And I just think it's absolutely great so parents can figure out how their students can excel.
Yeah, that's one thing I do love about our state is that there are so many options and that you can really find the right customized approach for your child.
Yeah.
So as a parent, right, you've watched your kids evolve and how has education changed since you were a kid and now watching it as your kids are going through the system?
Yeah, when I was a kid, you kind of went to the school down the street or you went to a Catholic school.
Yeah.
And so it really has changed a lot. I personally think that having more options has made everybody up their game a little bit. I think the competition, while no one likes it, and some could argue was it fair or not fair, and those are fair debates to have. But I think it's had everybody, charters, district schools, even private schools, have really had to focus on their core mission and what they're doing to educate students. And so I think that's changed in Arizona a lot. We've had charter schools for 25 years in the state. And in 25 years, I think, and I'm obviously very biased, but that the evidence suggests that it's been a real net positive for the state. And part of that is everybody's just gotten better. And we have a lot of challenges. There's a lot of work to do still. But I think it's been a net positive.
I grew up in small town Michigan, and so I went to the local district school. That was really the only option there.
Yeah.
So how do we kind of stack up amongst the rest of the country? I feel like Arizona is uniquely different in the sense that we do have so many district schools and charter schools, and that's not necessarily the case in a lot of other states. So
yeah, we've got a few unique things going here, which is because we are such a high growth state, we're still building schools where a lot of states' populations are stagnant, so they don't have to spend the resources on building schools. Not only do we have to build them, we have to maintain them. So that's one thing as a Nevada or an Arizona would experience that a lot of other states wouldn't experience. We have a diverse population. We have Native American communities here, and that's different than a lot of states like in the East Coast. We have, again, people moving from all over the place. And sometimes that's hard. A student moves either in the middle of the year or in between school years from California or wherever. And so they've got to sort of integrate into the school system. Overall, I think, funding is, you always hear a lot about the funding, and I do think that's an issue that we need to address. And then you hear about, results, and our results are good, but there's room to improve.
So for those individuals that are going to college right now, they're thinking about going into the educational field. What opportunities exist out there for those?
Well, it's a good time because we really have a teacher shortage in Arizona, and we need additional teachers, and it's very competitive. The marketplace is very competitive for teachers. I think it's such a noble career, and I really give Arizona, Governor Ducey, and others a lot of credit for addressing the teacher pay issue. I know there's still work to do. But I think Governor Ducey showed a tremendous amount of leadership on that issue, and the community, really supported that. And I think that's so important. But it is such a noble thing to do. There are very few professions. When you look at like the list of the most respected professions, teachers are always at the top of the list, and for good reason. What they do is so important for the future of the state. And so I am so grateful that people want to continue to do that and pursue that profession, because it really is the backbone in a lot of ways of our community.
Absolutely. So those individuals that don't necessarily have an education degree, right, that's not their specialty, are there opportunities for them to go and work within schools?
For sure. Within charter schools, for sure. So in charter schools, you don't have to be a certified teacher to teach. The idea being that if Barack Obama wanted to teach government, or Bill Gates wanted to teach computers, they could do that at a charter school. So you don't have to be a certified teacher to teach. So that is one option. You can also, if you have a 4-year degree but you want to be a certified teacher, there's programs that you can do to become a certified teacher. My wife did that, for example, at one point in her career. And so there are ways to do it, and then there are ways to, there's other things in education to do. But I think one of the neat things about charter schools is the schools do have that flexibility to hire non-certified teachers if they feel like that person will be a good teacher.
That's interesting. I actually didn't know all of that.
Yeah.
So another great way that employers can kind of get involved with the local school districts is even through Career Day. And I know that had a huge impact on me when I was younger, and that kind of helped set me up for success to where I am today. So what are some other opportunities?
Yeah. No, I think those career days are so great. I think anytime you can tie the education back to what your future might be as a student, it is so helpful. Most kids don't know what they want to do in high school, but they're starting to think about it a little bit more. And I'm with you. I think career days are so valuable, and most schools do them. And again, in the charter school space and district schools, to a certain extent, you have a prep school model. There's a school that I toured the other day called Glendale Prep, which is a great school. And you walk around, and everywhere on the campus you walk around, there is a college banner or logo, and their leadership is working so hard to make sure every student goes to college there. And it is so impressive to see what they do. And I think when you can do a career day kind of a thing, or parents are involved, or a lot of schools will do tours of businesses to expose students to those kinds of things. I just think it enhances their education and gives them, so they can start thinking about, again, do I want to go to a vocational school? Do I want to start off at a community college? Do I want to go to get a 4-year degree? What the right path is for those students.
So for those individuals in our community that want to learn more about, Arizona's education system, what are some resources here in town or individuals they should follow to find out more information?
Yeah, boy, there's a lot of them. The Arizona Department of Education has a very good website. The superintendent there is Kathy Hoffman, who is really, she's everywhere, and she's working really hard. And so you can follow her. You can follow the Arizona legislature. A lot of the policy they contemplate is education policy. The governor's office has an education section that you can follow. If you're that's more on the policy side. If you're interested just in the changes, there's our organization or other organizations that we're constantly posting new information or studies or blogs or things like that where you can get information. But there's a lot out there. It's almost sometimes too much. You're trying to make heads or tails out of different things. But if you Google Arizona education or Arizona education opportunities, you'll have a ton of stuff.
So if you're an individual that's really passionate about education, and maybe they've been a teacher or an administrator somewhere else before, but they're thinking about starting their own charter school.
Yeah.
Can you maybe explain what that process looks like?
For sure, yeah. And that's what a lot of it's how it's came. It was teachers who had an idea. One of she was a former state superintendent of schools in the legislature, Lisa Graham Keegan. She always describes it as two teachers have an idea, and for whatever reason it wasn't getting done at their district, and so now they're going to go start their own school, which is neat. But it's a fairly robust process. You have to get a contract with the state, and you do that through the Arizona State Board of Charter Schools, which is different than the organization I run. It's the government agency that sort of regulates charter schools. And it probably takes you about a year they're gonna want to know your curriculum and how you're financed and all those different kinds of things. And so it's a pretty long process. And once you get a contract with the state, then it's kind of up to you to figure out a physical location, where you're going to have your school. And some start really small and might be in a small office space or church space or something like that. Although you have to keep those things separate. And some go big. It depends, but you've got to find a space. You've got to get all this what we call soft capital, so the computers, the textbooks, or whatever you're going to use. You got to hire faculty, and then you have to market to parents so they know you're open for business and they can choose whether that model is good for their student or not. So it's a pretty long process, and probably rightfully so, to get a contract in the state. And then once you have that contract, you obviously have to observe the rules within that contract that you sign. But then you're kind of up and running, and once students start coming in, that's when you receive compensation from the state for educating those students.
And how can the Arizona Charter School Association help in that process?
Good question. We have a new school program. So if someone is thinking about starting a charter school, we have a program and a real expert on our team that can help walk you through that, because it's very detailed, and it is, again, rightfully so, I think, very thorough. And so sometimes having someone kind of help walk you through it is helpful.
Are there any other experts or individuals with services that would be really helpful in that process? Like, would they need a lawyer on board or?
Yeah, I mean, there are certain requirements that the state will ask you to have, but I think the State Board for Charter Schools has a good team there too that will kind of tell you, here's what you need to have in order to be eligible to get a contract. And ultimately, the State Board, which is a group of people that are appointed by the governor and confirmed by the state Senate, make that decision. But most of the time, you'll be working with the staff, and the staff will help you kind of lay out what it takes and what you need to be successful there. The other thing is, if you're interested in starting a school, I would go visit some charter schools and just see how they work and talk to those folks, because it's a tough job. Charter schools usually don't have the resources to have a facilities person. I mean, some do, but a lot of times the principal's changing the light bulbs and taking the trash out and all those kinds of things. And they're some of the hardest working, most innovative people you'll ever meet. I just admire them. So I think, talking with people who have been running charter schools for a while, if you're interested, will really give you an insight into the challenges and how rewarding it can be.
Can you share more on how are charter schools funded?
So charter schools are funded by the state. You get what they call an ADM, which is an amount per student that you're educating. Some schools will have, you can, as an option, you can, as a parent, just like district schools will have PTAs and things like that. There's things like that, but it's funded by the state. The major distinction is the charter operator holds the risk. So if something goes wrong in that school, and you've borrowed money to buy a building or whatever, that's on you. You have to figure that out. So that's probably one of the major distinctions between a district and a charter school, but they're ultimately funded by the state, and that's why there are rules where you can't, if you have open space, you need to take that student. You can't be selective in the students you take and things like that.
So as we kind of wrap up this conversation, is there anything else that you would like to leave our business community with within respect to K12 education?
I just think it has been such a great partnership in the business community, whether it's large players in the state or small businesses, has really dug in and been supportive of K12 education here. And I think it's so important to have that connective tissue. It's really made a big difference, I think, for our students and our schools. And I don't see that changing anytime soon, and I think that's great. And in their leadership and their commitment to making sure we have a vibrant, robust K-12 system is really remarkable. And I'm not sure it's like that every place. And so I think, again, we have a lot of challenges and things we need to improve on and work through, but it's such an important part of the community.
So for those individuals that would like to continue the conversation with you or learn more about what you do with the Arizona Charter School Association, is there a website that they can find you on?
You can, if you just Google Arizona Charter Schools Association, it's all right there. My email's on there, and anyone who has a question, comment, thought, insult, whatever, I'll take them all. Should feel free to give me a call.
Great. Thanks so much, Jake,
Lindsay,
for joining us
today.
today.
Thank you for having me. It's great to be here.